Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching our podcast today. Today we're joined by Prasanth Reddy, who's going to be who's going to be sharing a lot of advice regarding both his own personal experience as well as um the car industry and the car market in India, because that's where his work is mainly focused on. I'm Naveen Siva. I go to Duke University. I study computer science and economics.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Karthikeyan. So, hi, I'm Prashant, and I'm really excited to join this podcast as your first speaker. And so, I worked at Goldman Sachs for a few years, and then transitioned into a startup uh, as part of the Car Deco group, which is an automotive startup in India, and it's sort of like the car similar to like Carvana in the US. So similar kind of a company in India. So and it's a unicorn set up in India, and we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Prashant. Yeah, we'll quickly get started with the questions because we know you have a lot to share. Yeah, so the first question for you is, can you share a little more about your journey from Goldman Sachs to leading to your current role as leading, new auto finance at Rupee? What inspired this transition? Could you just like talk to us about it?
Yeah. So I mean, since my college days, I initially wanted to join a company in the finance space. I studied finance growing up in my 11th and 12th and through college, and I was very interested in the finance space. So I joined Goldman, interned there for a summer, and then joined them back with an offer to work full time. I can't go into specific details, but I was in their private wealth management space based out of Bangalore. And after some time, although the company is good, the culture is good, but I really wanted to work in a company that I could contribute to, where I could see real value right in front of me, like my contributions to like our society, our country, and tangible, impact. And that's when, and like down the line, I do have aspirations to like start something of my own. And so I wanted some sort of a front office as well as a startup experience in relevant to our industry and space. So that's when I took the leap of faith, moved states and came to Gurgaon, which is part of Haryana in Gurgaon, and it's sort of like Bangalore and Gurgaon are the two big startup hubs in the country. So a lot of the startups, whichever want to um, uh, start something new, they would pick these two locations primarily and start out. So that's when I moved here. That was a big factor that, I gained those skills, venture out into a startup ecosystem, understand how things work, and that lays the founding stone to eventually start something on my own as well. So that's how the transition happened. And I was very open to just learn anything, contribute to anything, and that's where like this was in that space which I had no idea about, especially on the automotive space. Given my background as well, like I didn't know anything, but transitioned here, learned everything quickly, and now I'm able to contribute and see value, right? Everyone who purchases an automobile, being one of the leading automotive startups in the country, most of the customers go through our platform. So I can see real value that is being created. And
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I have so many questions based on what you just said, but yeah, I think it's already like really cool hearing that you've gone from Goldman Sachs. You probably create you learned a lot of skills and gained a lot of experiences there, and I guess it's like really useful at Rupee now for your current role.
so, I mean, Goldman is a very reputed company, and being one of the front runners in the investment banking and generally the finance world, right? Very professional, uh, and the culture that they've set, right? So it's very competitive as well. So I think that got me, prepared for the startup role because I was open to learn anything, right? And like I mentioned, it's very competitive. So startups in India, because it's very fast paced compared to like an MNC or any other well-established companies. They're very agile. You have to be on your feet, learn, adapt very quickly. And I mean that goes for even an MNC, but they're well established and they have enough capital. They know how to operate. They've been doing it for like many years. So startups give you that opportunity. So I think that's how it's prepared me. Like it was a transition. It's quite different, right? But that allowed me, to be prepared for that transition. where I was with an open mind moving into car deco, a different space, right? And I think that's one of the most important skills, and also like the people management skills. So Goldman always encouraged a lot of networking, a lot of interactions with senior management across different verticals. And there were some elements that as part of my role that I also had to consider being in the financial services industry, which is heavily regulated. There were a lot of regulatory requirements that we had to comply with. So I think some of those things, even though it was not a relevant industry, it's obviously a US based company and most of the front offices were in London or New York. So the regulations were a little different, but that got me intrigued and excited. And I somehow, some of those skills I apply in my current role as well, where, we being in I'm part of the Fintech vertical of Cardeka Group, which is Rupyy, right? And so we deal with a lot of those, we're very heavily regulated. So as part of my role, I manage like alliances and strategic partnerships with a lot of financials, like the lenders in our country, the top lenders, whether the public sector banks, private, and even NBFCs. So there are different regulations for surrounding them. So as a partner where we source auto loans for our partners, we have to be considerate about the regulations and everything. So those skill sets have applied. Like I said, I was new to the industry, so that I learned through my role. But the other skill sets about being prudent, being inquisitive, and checking the uh, like with regards to the compliances and everything. So that keen mindset of attention to detail that I had helps me in my current role as well. So I ensure that there are customers are safeguarded, customer first approach, and everything. So these are some of those skills that have helped me in my current role as well.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Prashant. I think this is a good segue for us to talk about your role at Rupee right now. So, which is within Carddeco. So, as the head of the new auto finance at Rupee, what are your primary responsibilities?
Yeah, so I take care of two different functions. Let's start with the taking care of the new car finance portfolio. So my role encompasses building out a team, handling a team of folks who uh, basically we any person who buys a new car in our country so first of all let me take a step back. Our role in this entire ecosystem, we are one of the leading, actually the top in terms of traffic. So any customer who wants to purchase a vehicle, they pretty much research about it. So the traditional way is you would go to a dealership, take a vehicle for a test drive. You would understand from the salesperson what are the features, and you have something in mind in terms of a budget or a brand. But people are confused, and on your fingertips you have your smartphone, so you just check out the specifications of a vehicle. And typically when you search anything, our company pops up. So we own multiple auto portals, ranging from Car Deco in the car space. We have Bike Deco from bikes, two-wheeler spaces, and then we have Trucks Deco for commercial vehicles. And also we also own Rupee, which is the finance portal, and Insurance Deco also in terms of the insurance industry. And and also Zig Wheels, which is again an auto enthusiastic platform. So we have different customers, and our main source of business is we are very good in the content space. So we write a lot of articles, we publish a lot of videos. So customers researching what vehicles land up on our portals. So we have a huge customer base, a lot of traffic. So we're leading in that space, and that's a traditional business. So from there, like part of being the finance piece, like we have about 80%, 85% of the customers coming on our platforms, our portals, right? So that's where we capture our customer information, and we help our customers fulfill their requirements of getting a vehicle. That's the primary objective. And then we have ancillary services like the insurance and finance. And that's where my role comes in, where we have a sales team who helps the customer fulfill their requirements, loan requirements. And my role specifically is to get those lenders on board. Like we do not fund through our own books. We are not. We in new car, we'll get to that later, but new car is quite the rates are very competitive, and there's not a lot of margin that we can make. So we are a marketplace in principle, where we have a lot of lenders participating on our platform, leveraging our traffic and customer base, and to give them the offers, loans that they require to fulfill their requirements. So our role is the strategic alliances, getting these financials on board, negotiating, the process, fulfilling, getting our commission takes from that. That is our role. So that is one part of the role where we get the lenders on board. The other vertical that I have is more of a B2B SaaS tech solutions role, where we have build out our systems internally, like in-house technology, in-house tech capabilities that we have. We have built out a lot of systems to support this function of fulfilling the requirements of our customers in terms of the loan. So we build these robust systems, and then there are a lot of other players. Like we encourage competition as well, so the products get more innovative. The end objective is to serve our customers. So we have the step tech capabilities which we've incurred costs and built over the years. So we leverage those systems, and we also help our partners to provide them tech solutions to again plow back into the entire ecosystem to meet our end objective, combining the strength of the lender as well as us as a fintech partner. We enable them with these tech solutions to provide those loans to the customers. So not going into any details, but these are applications, APIs that we share with our partners, which help them build out these digital journeys, or we help them build those digital journeys to cater to the customers. So the objective is the same. So these are the two different functions that I have. So typically, there's an entire ecosystem play that we have. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of auto portals. So we have Zigwheels, it's a different user base that comes in. Then we have PowerDrift, which is one of India's largest auto channels subscribed in India, right? So we have different types of content that is there. So the differentiating factor that we have an entire ecosystem play. So if you look at a typical customer, when the first transaction that they would have, like I said, they research about the car and they land up on our portals. Then when they choose to purchase the vehicle, our team supports them in getting the best discounts, helping them get the vehicles. And we also have partnerships with dealers, with manufacturers to give them leads, do campaigns on our platform, because we have the user base coming in. So right, so they can target customers on our platform to convert them to sales. And then we have the ancillary services, which is the insurance factor. We have the finance factor. Then if a customer has an existing vehicle, he comes in to exchange, like given his used car and get in a new car. Then we recently have we've acquired a majority stake in Rev, which is a subscription, a rental or a subscription based platform, right, in the automobile space. Right. So typically in India, majority of the customers purchase a vehicle. But if you look at matured markets like developed countries like the US, you have a lot of customers who rent out or pay per use model, right? Rather than owning the asset, they pay for the usage of the vehicle, right? So it's a fixed subscription or a rental, and the maintenance costs are charged up into the subscription of the product. So it's like in a typical loan, you pay if you finance the vehicle, you pay an EMI, right? But it's a expense that you have, and then you own the asset. But the other way is you subscribe and you use the asset and you pay for it, and the maintenance is included in the cost. So then you basically say like just something like an iPhone, right? In the US, India is still new to that concept, but in the US, you pay through the carrier, you pay for the phone, and you can upgrade your phone, like say every year, and it's just a little bit fee that you pay, but then it's a very subsidized cost, and you pay for the phone and the usage. So the same concept. So we have that ecosystem of again investing into Rev. So that's a market that we are looking to grow in India right now. It's very new that they've acquired. So let's see how that's going to pan out. But the point I'm trying to make is, and then we also have the accessories. So post purchase of the vehicle, whether it's servicing the asset, then like checking your say challans, that if you have fines, if you overspeed or anything. So a lot of the post transaction as well, post sales service, we've entered into everything. Like we also have tire deco, for example, so for comparing, researching about the best tires for your cars. So things like that. We are into every space that you think about, in the car. So we want to resonate with our customers. When you think about a car, you think about car deco, right? So that is what we have. We have the entire ecosystem play, whereas most of our competitors have a very niche, like they're into the used car space, they're into the new car space, or they're into just the finance. So that is, that's how we differentiate. And specifically in like where I'm the team that I'm part of, the fintech team, Rupy. We are one of the largest originators on our, for a used car loan. Like we are leading the entire market. We're one of the leaders with we obviously we again, as I mentioned, we are not financing ourselves, but we are originating those loans for our partners. So we are one of the largest partner players in this market in the used car space. New car finance, we've started it pretty recently, a couple of years ago, and that's the vertical that I'm taking care of. Again, we're growing in that space as well. So this is what we are giving or kitting to our customers.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Yeah, it sounds like yeah, it sounds like you first have to like understand like where the consumers are trending. Like what their preferences are, what their um I guess expectations are for the car market industry. I guess based on your experience so far, like have you seen any trends? Like are the consumers in India, do they have certain expectations from firms like Cardeco? Like how are they different from maybe say other consumers from developed countries? I just want to like hear about the industry, I guess, expectations from the consumer viewpoint.
Yeah. So, I mean, the trends are pretty obvious. So, as I mentioned earlier, a car is a luxurious product. And the Indian consumer, specifically with a car and a home, they're very emotionally attached to it, right? Where these are really big assets. And so it's not a very basic necessity or something that's affordable. So, people are spending a lot of money. So, the transition to prior to COVID it was not very accessible. Although finance was something that is now helping consumers, they're able to afford, right? So prior to COVID, like you could see with the average ticket size of a car would be about 5 lakhs to 7 lakhs, right? Now that has slowly transitioned to above 7 lakhs, so closer to 8 and a half, right? And the shift would contribute to say something like everybody, the Indian consumer was tagged as say very economical or affordable. But and that would contribute to the sales of hatchbacks in the country. But now that is moved to SUVs, right? A lot of customers are preferring SUVs. Our roads are not very friendly for like say a sedan or something like that. But SUVs are something that typically they're built for such kind of situations, right? And customers, and although they're not very affordable, they are on the higher end. It's above 10 lakhs that you can afford an SUV, but consumers are buying. That's the trend. They're shifting to an SUV, right? And along with that, and earlier sedan was a very again something that was not very affordable. It was on the higher end, luxurious sedans. But now players are trying to reintroduce sedans as well as at an affordable rate. So something like Skoda has been doing, right? So these are the trends, right? SUV market has picked up. Prior to COVID, as I mentioned, two-wheeler industry is again a very big industry in the country. Like every tier two, tier three, that's a big segment. But COVID has made people also think about moving from a two-wheeler to four-wheeler because of the safety, health reasons, right? And you might think that it was not very affordable. The country people did not have money to purchase. So obviously, finance is an indication. Finance has become more affordable, more available. Inclusion has increased, so people are availing finance. So consumer spends have increased, and a fact of that is the number of credit cards issued in the country, right, has increased significantly. And recently, RBI, the regulatory body, have indicated that uh, these are unsecured loans, right? Credit cards are unsecured. There is no asset back. So the discretionary spending is increased a lot. And I think some of that has to do with COVID. COVID initially people used to think about the reduced in income during COVID, right? Layoffs. But what has happened is also people have saved a lot during COVID, and so post COVID they started spending a lot, and that's the back data of the credit card usage. So that's just one example of how discretionary spending has increased. So people also now in spending more on luxurious goods. So and car being one, the real estate boom being one. So people are able to are taking in finance. It's more affordable, more available. So they're spending and increasing. So those are the trends. So if you look at the auto sales prior to there was a dip in the auto industry a couple of years ago, right? And there were a couple of reasons. Obviously, that the affordability was one, but also there was the chip shortage for quite some time. We didn't have chips, and every car has a chip, right? And the more smart they're getting, the chip is a basic requirement for the cars. So that was a factor for the reduction and a lot of other trends. But now there's again an uptick from the last calendar year. Now the average sales has increased to close to 3 lakh a month, right, of vehicles sold. And now the industry as well, we are closer, like there's the US, there's Japan, China, and Germany. So we are after that, we are very close in the market in terms of market capitalization in the auto industry. We are sitting right there, and we're growing really fast. Like we're still very underpenetrated. The population is huge in the US. Like every household, like the percentage of a car to the household is very narrow compared to India. There's a huge gap, right? And that's only increasing. The demand is increasing right now. Like last month, there was about almost 4 lakh, close to 4 lakh vehicles sold a month. That's a huge shift, and that's only growing. And the trends also, obviously, with the EV space. So there's the alternative fuels coming up. So there's the EV space. There's the hydrogen powered vehicles, fuel cells. There's hybrids coming up in the country, and then there's obviously CNG and everything, alternatives that are increasing. So every manufacturer is focusing, and the government, the regulations are also playing a part in that, where they're moving slowly from away from, say, diesel and petrol, so the IC vehicles, to electric vehicles or the hybrids, right, or the alternative fuels. So these are some of the trends, right? So it is definitely a big bet. It's very significant. It's one of the largest. This industry contributes to the GDP of the country. So there is a focus to increase, penetration. Customers are purchasing. So these are the major trends that we're seeing. And digital, as I mentioned, is a big play. So there was an entire industry, for marketing. What do you say? Marketing channels. Now, the auto has become one of the channels, right? Where the cars are becoming smart. You can start. There's going to be a new. It's already in the transition phase, but there's going to be a new audience to target, or a platform, which is in the car. You can start seeing ads which didn't exist earlier. Obviously, on the radio you could hear it, but targeting those customers on the digital dashboard that you have, and cars might be having digital spaces on the car itself for advertisements and everything. So this is again a new space that is. I'll just initially start off with the not specific to car deco or Rupee, but general industry practice. So until last year, March 2023, there was an offer to customers that the government had issued in terms of a tax benefit that the customers would get. So under the Income Tax Act, you had some benefit, about 1.5 lakhs of a tax rebate that you could get, exemption, if you purchased an EV vehicle, and but only for the interest component, right? So you would get a benefit on that. But that was a push for the consumers to adopt into purchasing EVs. So that has been that's gone. So let's see the budget, if because there's a political shift that's happening with the recent elections, upcoming elections. We don't know if the government might, again, to push EVs, right? There might be some kind of a, say, extension, or maybe something, or maybe not, right? Because they had this from 2019 for like a couple of years, to push consumers to purchase EVs, and we've seen that obviously the trend has increased. And there was also subsidies, not on the loan space, but subsidies on purchasing the asset as well, that either the central government or the state governments would issue. And some of the subsidies still are prevailing basis the government's decision. So you would get a redemption on the taxation on the vehicle. So earlier I talked about the customers' personal income, tax, that you would get redemptions or exemptions basis purchasing. But you also had one while purchasing the asset, you pay sales tax on the or registration tax. So that would be discounted, right? So some of them still are available to customers. But coming back to the loans, specifically, right now there is nothing major, but you do get all the financiers to enable the push, right? Because earlier the government stepped in with the schemes that they had, but now eventually the industry has to take them up. So what the industry is giving is, in terms of a loan, banks differentiate by not a very significant margin. Like the public sector banks provide you a 10 basis points difference, right? So what that means is 10 paisa, right, or 0.10% difference. So if a typical car loan in India is, say, 9.25% for an IC vehicle, which is the petrol and diesel, you would get a 9.15% a reduced rate for purchasing an EV vehicle. So every financial has a different way to encourage and push, because and this started happening recently, because earlier what happened is the market was very new, and you have to understand from a lender perspective, whenever they choose to finance a vehicle, there's something called loan to value ratio, which means if an asset is cost of an asset is, say, 10 lakh rupees, the on-road price, right? So you have the ex-showroom plus the registration and the insurance cost built in, and then you have the on-road price. So a financier would consider, so there's a graph or a metrics that a financier looks at. So every asset, a car is a depreciating asset. So if you take a loan and say you default on your loan, what happens is the bank possesses your vehicle, sells it out in the market, and they try to recover their losses from the customer defaulting on the loan. So what happens is less than 2 years of the into the loan period, the bank makes a loss. So that they typically the average loan period in India is like even the industry is like 5 years. It typically everyone takes a loan for average 5 year tenure, which works out for the bank because if beyond 2.5 years or close to a 3 year tenure, if you take a loan and if you default, the value of the asset is higher than the principal outstanding. So if what that means is if the bank repossesses the vehicle and they sell the vehicle, they make more money and they recover the dues by selling the vehicle and with an additional profit that they make beyond 2 years. So you're also incentivized to you get lower rates for a higher tenure, like 5 years typically. And again, if it's beyond 5 years, again the principal outstanding is higher, so the risk is higher to the banks. So the reason I explain this concept is um, earlier the methodology to calculate this, how much depreciation, how much I can fund, or the LTV that I talked about was pretty standard and defined for an IC vehicle. When an electric vehicle came in, nobody knew because right now electric vehicles are expensive because the cost, the batteries, and everything, the technology is new, right? So eventually it will start reducing. So the risks associated with this was they didn't know how to forecast the depreciation, like what would be the wear and tear of the battery, because you're basically ensuring or the wear and tear depends on the battery of the electric vehicle because otherwise electric vehicles condition of the vehicle is much better than a non-battery operated vehicle, right? So but the battery was the big expense and it's expensive, right? And so they didn't know to calculate, but now the industry has matured into a 3 year period, right? So 3 4 years, so now you understand the market. So these products have now started coming in where they understand and they're able to take those risks and input those factors to determine what is the LTV or the rate that I can provide to the customers. And look at the customers also. The typical customer who purchases an EV are, because it's not yet affordable in the country, are a higher segment, right? More affluent customers, more young generation, you could say, right? Because again, it's a digital footprint, right? So someone who can relate. You cannot go to say a rural area and ask someone to purchase a vehicle. It's a very low percentage. So city bound also because the infrastructure has to support that. So all of these factors play in. And so right now it's limited, but I think as it goes on, you would have more benefits maybe. And as I said, the government is actually the industry shifting again from electric space because if you look at it, they're powered by the grid, and the grid is not again alternative yet completely, right? So you are saying your vehicle is electric, but your source of electricity is again still not completely alternative, right? So you also have to solve that problem. Otherwise, the cycle is pretty much the same. You're saying you're reducing fossil fuels, but then you're still using a fossil fuel backed electricity for your vehicle. So that's like a little bit of a contradiction, but it's moving, and that's where something like a hybrid is a good prospect. Ethanol based flexi fuel is a good prospect. Um, you have the other alternative sources like hydrogen, maybe nitrogen fueled as well. So these are things that we'll start seeing emerging technologies, which are quite interesting in this space. And something I think second part of your question was how are we participating, Rupy or Kardeko Group? So we, especially on the two-wheeler space, we also have an NBFC arm. We have a license to also disburse loans on our own books. Right, there's a different division within the company, right, team. So we also finance. We want to resonate ourselves with the emerging trend as well. So we are specifically finance two-wheelers, electric vehicles on our own books, and we encourage that on our platform. So through our own books, we and two-wheelers obviously have a higher interest rate. So that's where we are able to provide those loans on our books because the margin is available compared to a new car, because new car the rates are competitive around a average of 9%. But if you take it from the borrowing rate as a NBFC from the bank, if you take the bank lending rate, the bank would give me a loan at say 7 8%, and then if I add my margin, I cannot afford to charge the customer a competitive rate at a 9 or a 10. Right, a 10 is still again high in a new car space. So I would typically give 11%, then I would not get a customer profile that I need, which is a good customer. I would get someone like a poor CIBIL customer, a poor credit history customer, and I do not want that in my book as well in the initial period. So these are the factors. So at our perspective, we enable the customer. We push customers if they want an EV. On our platform, we have a separate section educating our customers. They can see the cost of purchasing an electric vehicle versus a traditional, petrol or a fuel-based vehicle. They can check the comparison of the costs. We are helping customers locate the nearest charging station, for example, which earlier you would want to know the fuel station. Now you want to know where the nearest charging station is, or a battery swapping technology station for two-wheelers example. So that because we are participating in that perspective right now, but also we are tied up with the manufacturers to generate leads for them to push. So right now we are waiting and watching, and we are also we are participating. I cannot disclose that, but the team at a broader level are working on a lot of factors on that, and we are watching the market very closely to see how we can contribute as well.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Prashant. I think you shared a lot of information there, which is all very useful. I guess I have a question just about um like the overall I guess industry trend for EVs in India. Do you think um I mean from my understanding I think India is probably I guess taking the right steps towards starting to build this infrastructure. But yeah, what do you think has to be done, either by governments or even the private companies that can actually I guess speed up the process maybe, or even make it easier for the private companies to actually sell more EVs in India. Yeah, I guess my question is what are some steps that the government or private companies should take, and how long do you think it might take India to reach those numbers where we can actually see a significant change or reduction in maybe carbon pollution, um and stuff like that.
So I mean, every country has different you say norms, emission norm standards that we follow. So India follows the European standards that we have. There's a commitment to the environment and sustainability, right, that the government has, and so we are aligned to that. So every few years we have basis the emission standards and the recommendation. We recently had the Bharat standards 6 like 2.0, right? Which was we had moved from BS4 engines to BS6 engines. So what that means is the standard they basically determine, or they lay out the plan of how fuel efficient an engine should be to reduce the emissions. So to comply with the emission standards and the norms set globally. And then you have the various meets, like you have the World Economic Forum, you have the Davos Summit. You have different forums where the governments are participating as well, and the commitments that they've set. So what the government is doing right now is, like, if you follow the trends in EVs, everybody's very keen on Tesla coming into the country. But we also have homegrown players, like you have Ola investing heavily. They're doing pretty good job in terms of the two-wheeler space. Now they're ready for their four-wheeler as well, right? Uh, Local players in the country, like you have Tata leading with the passenger vehicles, as well as commercial vehicles, where they're putting in battery operated vehicles, like the electric vehicles. Similarly, Mahindra. So you're less with Maruti, but again they have their plans, right? So if you look at it, let me answer it in two ways. Nobody is very sure if EV is completely the answer, right? As I mentioned, the focus is also there on hydrogen, on other alternative sources. Because if you look at something like a hybrid vehicle, right? You basically operate, it's a battery operated vehicle, but the efficiency increases. You don't have to, the problem of the infrastructure of not having charging stations reduces, because you basically fuel your battery through petrol or diesel or flexi fuel, right? So that basically provides the juices required for the battery to operate on the go and create the energy, and so that you don't have to go and keep charging the vehicle. That gets charges on the go, and that's how the hybrid works, right? So the answer is a mix. Nobody knows the exact trends, but if you look at what the government is doing, they are encouraging global as well as local players to manufacture in India. So the Make in India initiative, right? So this earlier, a lot of focus was on like a lot of companies were trying to comply, but they were doing a lot of assembly in the country, not manufacturing exactly. So what this creates is, it creates jobs in the country. We use our resources efficiently, reduce the what to say the dependency on, say, China, because a lot of parts were imported from China. So, and then we basically push our economy. So that's a good story for our country, for the jobs, for the people, make in India and everything. And we get global investments or FDIs or investments with countries like with the companies like Tesla manufacturing and setting up factories here, right? So that's what the government is pushing. Make in India. Then they issue subsidies, what they had done earlier, right? We had the FAME subsidies to encourage local manufacturing, encourage local, producing and everything, and make it affordable to the customers well. So once you start manufacturing here, because the reduction in taxation and everything, which the government is encouraging, it becomes more affordable, right? So that will take time. Answering your question, how long do I anticipate it will take? Like again, there's no hard and fast rule, but definitely the infrastructure keeps improving, right? And the government is again assessing, and companies like Maruti, what I explained earlier, they didn't go all out in trying to build or launch electric vehicles. They focused on their fleet, they focus on CNG vehicles, right? And eventually bringing in an electric vehicle. Tata has been aggressive in the electric space. They are the leaders right now in the four-wheeler space, right? In two-wheeler, two-wheeler is a big impact, right? Because again, that also will apply to tier two, tier three locations. Because soon you'll start seeing an Ola vehicle in, say, a village running around. You just need the, charging electric setup at your home to recharge your vehicle. So that trend is picking up because a lot of two-wheelers now are being sold which are electric, and by the push of these vehicles, and it's not that expensive. Average ticket size was about 50 60 60 70,000 rupees, I think a little lower in the traditional IC bikes, and electric is closer to, if you look at the, not barring the low speed vehicles. So low speed is usually used for logistic purposes, right? But for the consumer facing, it's closer to a lakh rupees, which is still something, and you have financiers financing that. And that's where the ecosystem is giving a good play. It's giving a push where it's becoming inclusive from at least a two-wheeler space. And commercial fleets have been changed, and that's a big application again. Like you have long haul, vehicles running through logistics in the country that can be easily, converted to electric vehicles because they're more efficient. You can track, because that is a kind of a business you want to track the movement of shipments. So you can move on a digital space, and something what even again Tesla is doing in the US. So in India, we have all these companies, Tatas and the Mahindras, all the way to the last mile delivery. They're moving them to electric. So it's a good shift and a trend. And I think that's where we're going. So probably in the next 5 years, we can see infrastructure improving a lot, right? And so you see the Reliances and all of these companies, tying up with traditional fuel oil companies like with the Indian Oil or Bharat Petroleum, like Shell, all these companies, they're tying up with those companies. So you have a concept like in the US, you have like a 7-Eleven store where consumers, that market is being created right now in India, right? You have in a fuel station now, a gas station, you have a restroom, and now you have a 7-Eleven kind of a small store, so you can go and purchase. Soon you might probably start seeing eat out there, right? And when you have electric, you have to wait to recharge. So they are tying up with them and creating space for a recharge station. And so now that again boosts the entire system of consumerism and giving that time and everything. So that is happening as well. So I think all of these will slowly start blending in together and change that shift completely. And budget, as I mentioned, is a big play. So we are keen to see how the budget is going to play and what it's going to give out, as an ask for this industry specifically, right? So let's see how the trends will shift.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Prashant. Yeah, it sounds like there were so many moving parts required. So yeah, it definitely doesn't sound like an easy problem to solve. But yeah, hopefully we are moving the right direction. Yeah, I think now we'll transition more into your personal insights. I guess so. Just some advice. So, what are some skills that you believe are important to succeed in this field? And how do you think students should go about acquiring those skills, or anyone interested in joining, just say a company like Karthik, how should they go about acquiring those skills? Um, yeah.
Yeah. So the first and foremost thing is, the most easiest thing is be like eager to learn, right? As I told you, startups are very agile, right? They're constantly changing, and the space that we are in, like especially in the Fintech space, it's highly regulated, right? So you have to keep changing, be compliant, right? And so that is also one of the big challenges as well in the industry, right? Constantly evolving regulatory space that we have to comply with. So the skill sets that you would need is being agile, being open to learn. Obviously, if you understand a little bit of finance, it's not a very essential skill because you can pick that up. But technology again. So the fintech, that's how you have the tech part of the financial technologies, right? The traditional way of banking you have, and that would be more theoretical and something you need to know about banking, right? But when it comes to fintech space, they're the new age companies. They're changing how you traditionally operate. So you know, maybe if you understand a little bit of technology, APIs, API, how they work, how to be more inclusive to customers. So basically understanding the problem set, right? In India, we didn't have access to capital a lot. Not everybody is financially independent, all of that. So understanding that requirement, understanding the consumer experience, what the consumer requires, right? Having that kind of a mindset, the consumer mindset will basically push you to contribute. So then you want to solve these problems for your customers, right? How can you make it more affordable, more accessible to your customers? So that is one. Then the other line, other on the other side, you want to know. So there's some aspect of it which is technical. Like if you are going to be part of the product space or the IT space in this division or the field, then you need to be technical, obviously. So I think there's some sort of a skill set that we're moving to. So I think maybe later on in the segment, if you're interested, we can talk about that, about the emerging technologies. And India is very in a very sweet spot right now with the introduction of what NPCI is doing in terms of what we did with incorporating linking Aadhaar. So and then the use of UPI, Beam. Then so basically that's one of the largest technically one of the largest fintechs in the country, and they're going to disrupt it with what they've done with the way of ease of payments, right? Will be changing everything that we're touching, right? We never imagined it's going to be what we're paying money through a QR code would exist prior, right? So this has changed. So a constant trend or the pattern here is seeing is the adaptability to changing trends and being up to speed on those trends. Because if you do not adapt to that, then you will be lagging. So if someone wants to transition like what I did, best be eager to learn. Rest of it you'll pick up. Understand the consumer trends, what the consumer wants, be open to that, and try and build out those solutions, right? That will help you. Yeah. So if I say specifically say technology aspect, so a lot of everything right now you need technology or use some sort of a technology, implementation to enhance the product, the experience, the efficiency and everything. So if you ask me, right away from college, yes, you can partake because then you're in the technology space. I'm not speaking specifically from the business. For that, you need an experience. You need to understand how it operates. You need to read a lot, understand the regulations that we have, or like right now the very hot topic right now is on data privacy and customer consent, right? That India has laid out the bill right now of giving customers hand of their own data, right? How they can control by giving and withdrawing consent. So that is the current important thing that is going on, transitioning, right? In terms of how India never had a policy before, but right now it's being implemented, right? But coming back to the technology space, you can come in, learn, and you can shadow because nobody expects a fresher to come in and right away go. So you learn, right? So the technology that you learn or the skill, the languages that you learn, technical languages that you learn, you will use to build these systems or applications. And that can happen anything. Suppose you build an application, but the process flow you understand by understanding the business angle of it. Because there are certain things which are business angle, certain which are regulatory. For example, there are certain compliances that I have to build in using technology, right? For example, how you maintain customer data, it applies to every industry, right? So you have to secure the customer data, you have to mask the data so that anyone can learn and pick up. So you can start right away, start contributing from a technology perspective, and there will be someone to guide you on that. But then when you slowly start moving in your career, say from technology to say product, then you need the understanding so that you can then lay out how do you want to build your architecture, how do you want to build your data tables, how do you want to manage your data, so things like that. So I hope that answered or is clear in some manner that yes, you can do it, but you will again learn on the job. So the experience comes in it. While in any job you learn the trends by reading, by talking to people in the industry, participating in say summits, understanding, following the trends. you can slowly build, and then you innovate in that. And as I mentioned, you can innovate how much ever you want, but there'll also be a limitation in the regulatory perspective. And that is again regulation, even though might be something hard, but that also is a guidance to you. So you know your limitations within the regulatory framework, which is mandatory and you cannot ignore. So that shapes how you operate.
Uh, yeah, I have one more question for you, Prashant. So, I think you mentioned that there were new technologies in this industry, or not even just in this industry, but in India. So, could you like maybe talk about one technology in India that excites you the most and why it excites you?
I mean, this very interesting space that we are in India. Like, which we have a lot of engineers in the country, and we've been serving other countries as a service industry, right? If you look at all the major consultant companies, you have TCS, Wipro, Infosys, all are Indian, right? We have a huge tech pool in the country. Using that knowledge and that skill set in the country and seeing how we applying technology in the country is a very interesting space. And especially in the fintech, let me answer it in two ways. In the fintech space, a technology that, the entire API or API stack is very interesting. A little bit I stressed, I mentioned, with the Beam and NPCI. So NPCI being the body which controls all of this, you could say will be the largest fintech, right? Because they control the payments. So whatever they've introduced with starting from the UPI, revolutionized payments. Then you have startups like Paytm, which started the QR code technology, which helped the inclusion and accessibility. Every merchant that you have, a street vendor, everybody is using that capability. And so you hardly earlier you would keep carrying cash with you, but now you do everything digitally. And now that's open to the world as well, right? Our technology is going out to the world where we are providing this technology to, pitching it to other countries to adopt similar technology, right? So that's an emerging trend, and we are doing a very good job on that. And so linking that with like as specific to our industry, something like you have the next step, which was like account aggregator. So we have a huge data pool, first giving control to customer on their data with the consent and everything, and remaining, to curb frauds and everything. You have the system of say account aggregator where the participants in this industry share customer data in a very secured manner. So earlier, you would have to use different systems. Suppose you apply for a loan, a customer say, Naveen, you apply for a loan. I want to assess your risk profile. So I would go to multiple systems to understand you as a personality that I can whether choose to lend to you or not, to associate the risks with you. Now with account aggregator, if you have an account with say XYZ bank, me as another bank trying to offer you a loan, get that information from that bank, which is authorized by the government system, an intermediary system, right? So eventually, obviously, this can get even more enhanced with something like a blockchain technology, right, where you authenticate this data, right, because that would help you curb frauds. You get accessible, very fast data, and that's what the government had done it in a very slow manner of first introducing the Aadhaar, then linking your Aadhaar to your PAN. So then you got that. Then linking it to all various systems. So you have DigiLocker for that. So rather than carrying physical documents. So the reason I'm stressing all of this is this entire ecosystem that the NPCI and our body of the government has framed, which has made it easy for credit decisioning, has been easy to reduce frauds and everything, right? So this is very interesting, and now that entire tech stack is starting to being offered globally. That look, you can do this very fast by participating using this technology, right? So that is something very exciting, and now you can see the transition. Next is the ONDC network that we have. So Flipkart and Amazon are huge e-commerce network, right? So the government has participated. Small vendors, retail vendors can participate in an e-commerce, right? You can get like your local shop can deliver something to you using the platform. So again, they're using then the central digital currency that you have. So we are familiar with the UPI, we're familiar with the wallet-based currency. It slowly transitions into social currency, something like what WeChat has in China. India will have with a lot of these big companies participating through, you call them like say something like Tata or the big houses have, where they accumulate all services onto one platform, right? I'm right now not getting the name, but super app, right? Super app. So that is social commerce, right? You get everything on one platform. You don't have to go to 10 different platforms. So the accumulation is happening. So that's how everything is being played out. And soon, like I said, like even we look at an e-commerce thing, we might also be participant in one of those social commerce or like a trend, right? So all of these, is very exciting. So this is one of them, and the technology that I'm excited about backing all of this is something like, say, blockchain and even like AI, right? Very it will change, right? It will make it, it's going to change. Decision making will be fast. I have more data to process and understand my customer to decide and everything. So I'm picking on these because specific to the fintech industry. But globally, yes, AI is a huge adoption, and we're yet to see, what all applications of this technology that we can do, right, to help our customers. So this is, interesting, and I'm trying to see blockchain especially because it's been talked about from a long time. Application has been slow, but I think at least because of the, as I said, regulatory framework is a very important aspect in our industry. So blockchain has a role to play there, because then you have a third party validation, authentication. But right now, I think the costs are not enabling that adoption as well. So it should happen. So
No, yeah, I think it's really cool to see all of this in play because it's so new. So I guess most countries and most industries is like learning how to, utilize or like make the best use of all of these technologies and work towards, like a bigger goal. Yeah. Hopefully the goal is right. Right. Hopefully we're working towards the right goal. So yeah, yeah, I have one more question for you, Prashant. So this is more personal. So yeah, what motivates you on a daily basis? Because I'm sure you have hard days. And yeah, like I think you've gone through like, a few jobs now in your life. So what motivates you? What, excites you just on a day-to-day basis? And yeah,
yeah, I mean,
just wanna hear.
yeah, so I think so earlier, like many years ago, if you ask me, definitely I wanted to work, say, like outside the country, gain some experience and everything. A very big factor that, motivates me or like gets me excited is our country itself, right? Like we're in the right time, in the right space. Like our country is going with the number of entrepreneurs growing, companies, startups, emerging, technologies emerging, and like, where we're heading in terms of, like earlier it was, we were serving a lot of countries, but now building for ourselves and then for the world, right? So instead, rather than only a services industry, we are now building, manufacturing, we're developing a lot of things. That is very exciting, because then, uh, being in a developing country, and I think right now we're in a very good spot to be one of the leading, or like eventually, like, dominating other countries as well, like the US and everything, right? Because of the, growth that we have in the country, and there's a huge opportunity. Like, the government has made that better, right, in terms of building startups and starting things and everything. So building for India and then the world, this is a very interesting space. So every time, sometimes, if I have to think about to motivate myself and everything, I'm like, I think about that, right? Yes, there's a reason I moved from Goldman to the startup ecosystem, to understand that, and the impact that I talked about, right? Contributing, seeing, the value that you add, and then eventually realizing that the impact that you can have and replicating that outside. Like, so by market capitalization, the largest countries, most of the largest companies, most of them are out of the US, right? India will get there, right? And we slowly, those companies are emerging, the big conglomerates that we have are building that out, right? These are all exciting times, right? To build, and that's something that excites me. There's a problem, solving that, and then solving that for every person in our country. And India is a tough market. So if you break or bring a solution for our country, it's a little bit assuring that you can solve that problem to the rest of the world, right? You have very similar countries. You have Africa, you have the South Asian countries, you have a lot of these countries which are similar. Brazil, for example, the BRIC nations, as you call it, right? You can apply the similar things. But also now, like we just spoke about UPI and everything. The US was dominating. If you look at politically or economically, US was dominant all these years with their currency. Everything was pegged against the US dollar, right? Now that's changing a little bit. We're starting to transact in rupee with our partners. We have recent examples, like in the Eiffel Tower, you can pay through UPI. That's a huge thing, right? Imagine the complication, and they are trying to break the challenge, or revolutionize the challenge of intercompany country payments, right? That you have right now, you have the Swift technology, but that will be changing with the adoption of using UPI, leveraging that technology by NPCI. They're trying to change that as well. Real-time payments across borders. So when I go to a different country, you used to worry earlier by carrying cash, then you move that to prepaid wallets. now you start using UPI, for example, right? And that happens on a real-time basis. And India's payment ecosystem of Rupay is now a big competitor to a Visa or a MasterCard. We are growing very fast, right? So you have everything. So our country's been smart in that way, and so that's why it's very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to that. How it's going to go, and that keeps motivating me. Like we are in the right place, right time. If you build, stay here, build for the country, build for that, and you will be there, right? Successfully building out the next big, say, a Google or a Facebook or any of those big companies out of India itself. So that those are the exciting times that we are living in, and that excites me a lot.
Awesome, Prashant. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the whole world is actually excited about India, and yeah, I think there's a lot of talk. So yeah, yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, we learned so much from you. Yeah, even Karth can agree that we learned so much from you, and yeah, yeah, thanks so much again for your time.
Thanks to both of you.
Thank
It's
you.
really exciting to spend this time and talk about some of my experience and some learnings to you as well. So I really enjoy this conversation. Thank you very much.